Okay, so the following session, I'm going to show you how to work on a version of JSON post.cpp from your own homework assignment number 5, produce or HW5 merge. Okay, so let me. I made a little bit different version than what I showed you last week. So I'm going to update this. I think this version might be easier for people to work on this code. Okay, so this code, as you can see, is called JSON. Let me use Emacs. It might be easier to. Emacs will show me the nice color, like. Okay, so this is a JSON post redacted CPP. I have this related to the key function, which I didn't redact it. You can just use it how I actually tracking the key. Okay, and I also have a function called JSON to post ID for me to extract the ID from the, because ID is very important for me to, first I look at whether this post has a valid ID. Okay, so here is a code. From here is the two function that's doing either the post or doing the merge. So I will say here it is. Okay, the major action is actually below. So here the code I have is, first I want to talk first is about JSON to post. It's converted a post JSON. A post, but using the JSON format to represent. That's what I call a post JSON, which is my V, is the input as a JSON value. I'm going to convert it to a post pointer. Basically, I return a pointer to a post C++, C++ post object, so it will for further processing. So based on the post star, if you convert, you can just say that particular pointer, my post PTR dash greater than, which means point to dump J, and then you can get that JSON back. Okay, so that's basically we're doing reverse of dump J essentially here. All right, so the thing is to make it more general. I actually tried different programs that I realized there's one thing I should check, which I might not talk about last time, is I first will check whether this is array or not, because people could potentially throw in any kind of strange JSON. I mean, not strange, but not unexpected. So I check whether this is an array to avoid if people throw me a wrong JSON, which is an array, not a real regular JSON. And then I might actually get segmentation fault. That's why I just say, if you actually give me some array, let me show you the example of an array looks like. So the JSON, instead of if it's a non-array JSON, it will looks like it's a parenthesis and then you have something in there. But if it's array JSON, it will actually started with a bracket, which is because what I'm expecting ID, I'm expecting all this field. If you give me array format, which is mismatched, then I cannot parse correctly according to the post semantic. So if I have this, I'm going to return null. Okay, so just avoid some segmentation fault. So I add this, my V is array or not. If it's true, then I'm not going to do anything. Okay, then the next thing, what I do is that you should have exactly similar thing at this line. I just create an empty post. I create an empty post for me to start to fill in the information from my JSON. So I create an empty post. And the first thing I did is I check whether the ID field is null or not. If you have a post which doesn't have ID field, I know this cannot be a valid post. So that's why if you don't have the ID field, I'm going to just exit. I'm going to kill the program because you gave me a JSON which doesn't have an ID. Okay, so basically I'm going to check the following, check with the ID. ID is very important. A post doesn't have ID. Let me repeat it again. I'm not going to process that, so I just exit my program. All right, So the other thing which is important, of course, if there does have ID field, then this part of the code should be somewhat familiar to you. Is we're just parsing the profile part of the ID and the post part of the ID. And this part is a parsing, but at this part, after you get this, let me actually do this. So this is a buffer. This is I use scanf. You can use other things to actually extract those two ID, and then I basically put the C string into the standard string format, profile ID and post ID, and finally I assign that to the empty post pointer I just created. Remember, my post pointer is being defined and initialized here as an empty one. So now the rest of the program, I'm just trying to put this value, right? This two is just, let me just make a comment. Put the ID attribute to the post object. Okay, so I'm just putting there. So up to this point, I'm done with the ID part. Okay, I'm done with the ID part. Okay, any question at this point? Everything good? Okay, I'm going to continue. So now this part is going to be a little bit maybe new to you. Is you see that now I'm actually calling another function. I call this function called JSON post comment. When I call JSON post comment, I actually have a two parameter. So I put the JSON, the my v, which is the parameter to the JSON to post. And also I put my post pointer. So this my post pointer is a almost empty post object. It only have ID, which I have assigned. The rest are basically all empty. Doesn't have a reaction, doesn't have a from, doesn't have a to, doesn't have anything. Okay, so I basically restructure code a little bit. So let me explain to you why I do this. The reason I did this is that I can have my JSON to post and JSON post merging, sharing the same piece of code, which is JSON post comment. Okay, I mean, this is a software engineering. I realize, I mean, you probably realize that your merging and your produce and merging, they actually share a lot of similar logic when you process file 1 and file 2. So essentially here, what I'm doing is I actually make a one function which can actually be generic to handle both, but still they're very similar to what you have with HW5 produce and HW5 merge. Okay, this is not a requirement. This is a reference implementation. I want to emphasize. It's just a way I tell you that how you can take this as an option. But I personally think that the modern day, the size of your source code, it doesn't matter. The size of your source code doesn't matter. If you want to duplicate 3 times, 4 times in your code, I mean, it wouldn't cause too much performance problem. I mean, disk storage is inexpensive. I mean, code compared to data is really small. But the reason I finally decide to do this is the following reason, is that whenever I want to maintain my code, when I realize there's a bug or there's a feature I want to add, I always have to add 2 places. And the thing is that because I have to do 2 places, if I make a mistake, means that I update 1 place but forgot the other. When I say 2 places, is one is equivalent to HW5 produce. The other one is equivalent to HW5 merge. They're similar, but they're 2 separate places. It used to be, I have a 2 piece of code, even in the previous version of this file. So anytime I change one, I have to change the other. That introduced my risk to expose myself into bugs, error, logical error, because I have to update both places. So I decide I want to put it into 1 copy and have both of them call this function. So in the future, if I do debugging, I realize there's something wrong I need to change. I only need to change 1 place instead of multiple places. Okay, that's the the most important reason for me to do this kind of massage of my code. Okay, so let me, assuming you already, I will get to this function a little bit later. So this function is called JSON post comment. It take my v, which is we talk about, is the JSON value, and take the pointer into that. So this is in some sense call by reference. Call by reference means that I'm actually inserting a reference or pointer to the function. Means that inside the function, if they change anything, is going to be observable from outside. Means that if they change my post PTR, that my post object will get changed by this function. So which is what I want, because I want them to move the value from the JSON value into the content, to fill in the content. So therefore, that's what I want. I want the JSON post comment to help me to do that. So once I call this, of course, I have RC, means that if there is any error. So the default of JSON post is that if it's a 0, if it's no problem, then RC return code should be 0. If there's something wrong, RC code will not be 0. Therefore, I will check. If this process is incorrect, I'm going to exit as well. Okay, so once you've done this, that you know that my post pointer has been polished inside the JSON post comment, I would just return this pointer to the JSON to post. But so now you can nicely do a dump J on that pointer, and you can see everything that generated from there. Okay, so this is the code for JSON to post. So now I'm going to show you the other function, which is, I call it JSON post merging. Okay, JSON post merging also take a parameter. This is already take 2 parameters. One is my v, which is the new update. I want to put it in, and then I already have a post pointer, means that I'm going to apply that my v into the post pointer. Okay, so already have 2 parameters, and then let's see what I did. So still I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to match the ID, because I want to know the new updated post JSON, which is represented by my v, has the same post ID with the C++ post object I have. So remember, merge is trying to merge these 2 things together. Merge object 1 and object 2 together. So in order for me to validate whether I should be merging these 2, I want to check whether they have the same object ID. So this part, you can see I'm still adding this, whether somebody is sending me a bad JSON, which is an array. And the second thing, I check whether you have ID. If you don't have this 2, then I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to immediately return something which is not 0. Okay. And okay, if you do have ID, if it's not an array, then I'm going to, you see, the first thing I do is extracting the ID, okay, using whatever into a string. And then this piece of code is really similar to what you saw before. It's just checking whether, hold on. I'm just using this. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't do this. Okay, I'm basically getting this part over here, and just put it in. Okay, so so put into this 2 variable standard string profile ID, post ID. The only difference after here is I'm going to check, instead of assign to the post. Let me actually show you the difference here. I'm going to roll back to the JSON to post. You can see everything is the same except the last part. Okay, if you compare this 2 line here, is the same as this 2 line. Okay, and the only difference is that after this, from JSON to post, I actually assign this 2 value into my post pointer, profile ID, post ID. But here you see I'm not doing that, because my purpose here is try to check whether this post JSON and the C++ post object, whether they share the same ID. That's why I did a comparison here. I want to see if they're the same. If they're different, then I'm not going to merge. That's why I'm going to return a -1 or whatever negative number to represent something is bad. Okay. 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 This is on top is the JSON to post. Let's actually get back to merge. So in the merge, after I decide the ID is the same, okay. So now you can see what I did. Okay, this part is all about ID. Okay, whether it has ID, whether it have this. So until now, I know they match. Okay, then I'm going to do the merge. Then I'm actually going to use that function JSON post comment. You see that is again my V and my post pointer. Okay, so essentially you can see that right now I'm doing just exactly the same like what I did earlier. The difference is that this one, I'm calling the same function, but let me actually show you both places so you can see the difference. Look at here, I'm actually calling this function. The top is JSON to post, the bottom is JSON post JSON merging or post JSON post merging. Okay, so here I'm calling, on the top, I'm calling JSON post comment. And on the bottom, I'm also calling JSON post comment. Okay, and they both take two parameters. My V represent the newer JSON I'm going to handle. Okay, so in the top case, which is HW5 produce, so that my V is just the single argument you try to do that for the HW5 produce. On the bottom, my V is from the second argument. Okay, you already actually convert the first argument into my post pointer, so now you're going to process the second argument. So essentially, this is just the new JSON you try to merge it in. Okay, but now here's a concept to think about. Think about what I just said. They are actually the same in the following sense. In the following sense means that I already have a post. Now you try to, and I know this post and the new my V, their post ID and profile ID are actually matching. So, okay, that part has been taken care up to this point. So then what I did is that whatever object I have, I'm just actually going to run this program for you to merge this thing into this. The only difference is that when I call the merge, that this my post pointer is pointing to an object which is already filled up with most of the content. I'm just updating a little bit. While the top one, my post PTR, is essentially almost empty. Nothing is there except this profile ID and post ID field. The rest of them are all empty. But they're essentially the same logic. I try to shuffle it in. If you're empty, I'm going to fill in. If you are not empty, I'm just doing the update. Okay, so that's why I can use the same logic to process both HW5 produce and Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry that when did I lose you? Which means that how much I need to roll back to rewind and repeat what I was talking about. Anybody can give me a hint about what was the last things you talked? Okay, thank you, Aldo. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so I was talking about this two different usage of JSON post comment. The top one is use equivalent to HW5 produce, and the button one is equivalent of HW5 merge. And the thing is that I mentioned they are similar in the following sense is that my V is always the new thing I want to add in. But the difference is my post pointer in the HW5 produce up to this point is just almost empty, but just with those two parameters, profile ID and post ID are available. While the merge case, my post PTR has pretty much everything else, including the profile ID and post ID. So therefore, inside the JSON post comment, which I'm going to show you, the skeleton, the redacted version. Okay, by the way, up to here, I'm not redacting anything. You can reference and decide how you're going to use it or not. But inside the JSON post comment, we basically need to check whether that particular field is empty or not. If it's empty, then I'm going to do certain thing reacting to that, which I will show you some example. I'm redacting most of part, but I'm still revealing how I handle the reaction part. Because just like the previous example, when we work on homework 5, I also show you how reaction will work, okay? All right, so now, I'm going to show you the JSON post comment. Okay, so inside JSON post comment, now you see the structure. That number one, just repeat. I'm actually getting the my V, which is the new value I just got, and then I'm going to do the my post pointer. So the semantics of JSON post comment is taking the my V and extract its value and put the value into the my post pointer. That's what they are trying to do. You can think about that's update. You can think about that's merge. Okay, so I also separate that into different sessions. So the precondition for this function to be called, I just want to emphasize that the ID already match. Okay, so ID already match. You know they're for the same post. So you don't need to worry about that inside here. So inside here, you just need to worry about each of the section, such as action, comments, key, links, message, reaction, and this history is actually for your homework assignment number 7. So I already implement in my code as well. And I said ID, you see ID is already done. So I'm not going to do anything with the ID. But then I have a from and to. I also leave the to here, just for you to see. And I leave some created time and also is published. I leave something there for you to reference about different situation. But the logically, they should be very similar when you handle other secondary information from your MyV. Okay. All right. So I'm going to explain, maybe I explain reaction because the reaction is I think is one of the most interesting feature. Okay. So when I handle reaction, the first thing I did, remember my V is a pointer. I took from the first one. Okay, and then my post point. Let me go over the how do I handle reaction. It's too much. Let me actually make my window a little bit bigger so I can show exactly all the piece of code. Why you don't like me? Okay, I'll do this part. I don't know how to manage Emacs to make it exactly fit. Okay, so the first thing I check is whether you have a reaction. Okay, potentially you don't have a reaction. That's why when you do my V reactions count, you're actually going to get 0. In fact, I just realized I actually should do something. Sorry, I think this code might have problem. Okay, I'm actually going to change this code. No, not right. Not right. So now I have a lot of experience dealing with segmentation for. I realize that a lot of things I need to be careful. So this one, I'm actually going to change this part. I will say is null. Is null is not equal to true. But what I need to do is this. Let me see. Is that right? Okay, that's good. Okay, so now I'm actually changing this code. I mean, this is, I think you have to do that because you don't know whether a post has any reaction or not. Because the example I gave you have a reaction doesn't mean in the future you won't receive a post without any reaction. So what I did here is that I check whether the reaction is null or not. If it's a null, then I check the second one. I think in JSON C++, maybe even you do this, it might work. But I just want to be careful is that check whether my V reaction is null or not. If it's null, don't check the second one. You're going to get segmentation fault. So you check if it's null. If it's not true, then it will say reaction count is greater than 0 or not. So this two condition using and to put them together means that I need to check whether you have any reaction. Okay, if you have any reaction, then I'm going to go into there. If you don't have a reaction, I'm not going to do anything because I have nothing to put it in to my post pointer. Okay, so here is a new line. I have to tell you that this is important for me to be able to reuse this piece of code for both merge and the post. So you see, I'm actually checking whether the post pointer reaction is null or not. Okay, I'm checking whether the C++ post object that your reactions, which is actually a pointer to a vector of reaction pointer, I'm going to check whether that's null. You can imagine if this is HW5 produce, then basically this pointer is going to be null because you haven't put anything. Pretty much, I only put the profile ID and post ID. Therefore, if you check if this is equal to null, I would just basically create a pointer, new vector reaction star. If you look at your HW5 produce, you will have this line somewhere here. But now we're just checking whether it's a null or not. If it's a null, I create. If you don't, this is not null, I'm not going to create. By the way, I'm not 100% telling you that even if you're calling HW5 merge, you won't have this line. Let me give you an example. For example, I have a post which doesn't have a reaction. So it means that I never need to create this line for that post. But when you merge, you actually merge some reaction. So therefore, when you do the merge, still you need to execute this line. So this line is actually a good line for you to check anyway for a variety of reasons. That number one, your code will be able to handle both situations. Number two, you actually check because if it's null, if you don't create it, and then you do the following thing, you're going to have a segmentation fault. Okay, so doing this check is important as a programmer to make sure that you consider all variety of situation. Okay. All right. So now at this point, up to this point, so we know there is a reaction. We also initialize the reactions pointer. So now we can do the following. And the following, you can see that is really similar to what you have. Okay, is you have a for loop to go to reaction count, and then you have a bunch of other things. Okay, and then you do this line, right? The L underscore JV is equal to my V reactions data I, and then you do the following process. Like you create a person object, you create the time, you create a reaction, and at the end you just push back. You push these things back to the vector, and you're done. Because you see the last line I'm still highlighting here. You basically put the content into my post pointer. regardless you're doing HW5 produce or HW5 merge. Okay. However, there's a one part which is also new to the last time I present this piece of code, is this piece. So have you noticed what I did here is I actually check for every single JSON, whether you have avatar name, whether you have a VSID, whether you have a created time, whether you have a type. The reason I need to check that is that, I mean, assuming you have a code, somebody give you a bad JSON, which is a reaction but doesn't have an avatar name and VSID. And if they don't have it, and then you execute this line, you try to create a person object, and when you do LJV avatar name as string, because you don't have this, when you call as string, is going to be segmentation fault. So therefore, that I'm actually checking every resource I'm going to use within this block that basically make sure that if you don't have anything, I'm not going to do anything. Okay. If you have all this 4 parameter in the JSON, then I will be able to really create a reaction object. Because if you don't have this, I create a broken reaction pointer. It might cause further down some problem. And also important thing is I put this line, which is insert the reaction pointer to the post only under this check. So which means that if you're missing some element of this, in this case, the 4 element, avatar name, VSID, created time, and type. If you're missing one of this element, I'm not going to insert that into the post. I want to maintain the post object's integrity. If you actually gave me some update, which is actually incorrect or with some kind of error, then I'm not going to temper my post. That's the integrity issue. So I will only do this that I know you have all this information. If you don't have some of this information, I'm going to skip this reaction. I'm just treat this reaction doesn't exist, okay? So let me actually parse this code a little bit to just before we go. So inside the loop, number 1, I just do save this. So let me just make the code looks shorter because I don't want every line I have this reaction data I. So I just use LJV. So below I can use LJV. And I have this check. I have this check with this 4 line. And then inside, this is a real action. This means that this 4 line of code is essentially, I know that I have this basic attribute from my JSON. So now I can construct the person object JV time and finally create the reaction pointer. And the last line is actually really this line. The last line here is really put the content, what I just processed, into this my post pointer. So this part is really, you can think that's what I mean call by reference earlier, saying that inside the JSON common post, I'm going to, JSON post common, I'm actually going to update the value from the JSON here, okay? And if you look at the whole code, if you understand this code, number 1, you should feel that this code is really similar to what you had for homework 5 produce or homework 5 merge. The difference is variety of check. Well, one kind of check is check whether it has this reaction, has this particular section. Number 2, I'm checking whether my post pointer for this section is empty or not. So I decide whether I want to create. And the final check is that I'm actually checking all the elements, whether they're there or not. If they're not there, I'm not going to merge or I'm not going to update. Okay, so that's the code for this part. Okay, I do want to show you another example. Let's go to 2. Okay, that's another one. But we can check. I mean, the same thing. You see, I'm actually probably have the same logic error here. I should actually do this. So this part, I also do just 2 counts. I'm going to change this part as well. 2 and the 2. Okay, I'm going to check this one. And the same logic, I'm checking whether 2 sessions is there or not. And then I'm going to check whether the receiver, which is my post pointer has a receiver, whether it's a null. If it's null, then I'm going to create this. So this, let me just compare this two for you to see the similarity. We're reusing the logic here. You see that this part is equivalent to this part here. And then this part is just creating this pointer, is checking reaction is null. I'm actually checking whether the receiver is null. Okay, and then I still have the same loop, right? And I still have this putting this JSON value. And then you see I have a check. I also have a check similar to those 4 checks, but here, if it's 2, I have to check whether there's 2, at least you need to have avatar name and VSID. If you check whether both of them are not null, then I'm actually going to create a person object. I'm going to create a person object, and then I'm going to just, this part, the last line is just push back is to my post pointer. Receiver push the 2 pointer, which means that I'm actually really change the value in my post pointer. Okay, so that's a 2 example. They're both similar data structure. They're following exactly flow. Okay, and then I'll just show you yet another one, which is created time. Created time is simpler because you only check whether the created time is a null or not, and then you just do new JV time with the created time string like this, and you put it in, and that's it. Okay. And after you've done that, everything has some check, some content processing, and the last line is always put the value update on my post pointer, which means that this is exactly what we want to do with HW5 produce and HW5 merge. Okay, and that after you've done this, you have one function which is called JSON post common, which is used by both the JSON to post as well as for JSON post merging. Okay. Any question? I'm going to update this piece of code. Maybe let me update the piece of code right now. I always forgot after I So while I'm typing, you can start typing your question or ask me question. Use microphone.
So after we implement those 2 files, then should we implement the server and client.cpp files?
Yes, I'll talk about the client server and CPP a bit. Okay.
Okay.
1 second. Let me input. What was the file name? The file name is JSON. Let me just JSON redacted. Is that right? Star CPP. Yes. Okay. I already upload that. Okay. So let me actually just tell you that what file you need to update. Okay. Let me go to. Let me go to homework 7 because I have a better setup there. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So here you can see I have HW6 client.cpp, HW6 server.cpp. I probably provide you a redacted version of both of those. Okay. The server part will be the more complicated one. Let me just say a w.cpp. You can see how size of the code. Okay, so the HW client is really simple. It's only 87 lines of code. Server is a little bit big because it need to receive this, implement this update function and search function. The actions are basically working on the HW6 server. Did I send a redacted version? Let me actually check. Did I have that? I didn't have that. That's interesting. Oh, I have it here. Okay, now I know. Okay, I put it here. Let's look at the let's look at this code. Okay, so this is my HW6 server redacted. So just like homework 3, you have this. I define this class, my homework 6 server, just very similar. But this one only have 2 functions. One is update, one is a search. So which means that you have to implement this 2 function, which is update function and the search function. Okay. So I basically provide a pretty big chunk of code to do that. Okay. So let me actually see that. Let me go over this very quickly. Let me go over this update function. Update function is considered more complicated than other, but in some sense, update will call the JSON to post. Okay, so let me go over this code section by section. What is a post map? Let me see. Post map is OK, I think. Yes, okay. Post map is okay. I'm putting the key to the post. Okay. So first, I actually declare something called post map. So post map is a what we call a map, which is including the string of the keyword that's actually to a post pointer. So I'm actually using post map to do mainly to do the search, but in the update, whenever you have a new post, I actually need to update this as well. So just let you know, post map is a new structure I define using this standard template library called map. Map is very similar to vector, except a vector only have essentially one argument, which is a type for the array that you have. But map is different. Map is not only have a vector array of some object, but it also have a key associated with each of the object. So that's why here that I have a first argument represent a key. For example, the key could be ice cream, the key could be Patrick Jane, the key could be Animal Crossing or whatever key you want to put it in for you to associate with the post. So essentially, you can imagine this is a very simple way of implementing a search engine to use the key to match to the post the content you want to get out of this. Okay. All right. So now we're doing post. So when you do the update, you can see that the first one, I have this empty pointer that it's a null pointer I define, but I'm going to update that. And this part of the code is similar to your HW5 produce, is just parsing the JSON that you just received from the other side. Remember, this is update JSON. It's coming in instead of you reading it from your file, that this is actually being sent from the client as a JSON string. So essentially, conceptually, they're the same. It's just coming 2 different ways. instead of reading from your local file system, that this is actually getting from the remote. But ultimately, it's still a string, okay, a string for you to process. So this part should be exactly the same. You're just parsing the string. I'm just getting the data differently. Instead of getting it from the file string, I'm getting it from the update JSON.c string. And where do I get the update JSON? Let me see, where's my update JSON? Yeah, see, the updating JSON is here. Not updated JSON, it's updating JSON. Okay, this is a parameter. I'm just using that as a string without doing all this file processing because I already get it. Okay. All right, up to this point, I already know that that JSON is already being processed, so now I'm ready for me to handle this JSON. Okay. So now I need to do this, is that I need to start to, by the way, I just realized here's some bug, because if this is not parsing, I should actually exit this function. I shouldn't continue processing. Okay, so let me actually put it here, note. Shouldn't continue, should not continue. Okay, because the JSON is incorrect. Okay. So now this two line, I just want to let you know is when I input get a JSON, I want to actually be able to store the JSON. I don't want the server, it's a valid JSON, the server crashed, then I lost everything. I want to make the post become consistent, persistent. So that is a very important goal of this homework number 6, is that we want to make sure that if there's a JSON, there is a post object is already there, even the server die, I will be able to reload from my file. That's why I start to give the file name. And the file name is essentially having the post underscore and %s is my VID as a string. Okay, by the way, this is also a logical flaw. I should say, when I write my own code, I actually realize I'm also doing debugging. Is that I should always check whether this JSON, this my V message has a valid ID. Because if it doesn't have ID, then this one will give me a segmentation fault. Okay, it doesn't have ID, doesn't have a string, this one will cause. So I think I need to do something like this, is if I do this, I will say if my V MESSAGE ID dot is null, is equal to true, then I should probably just say return -1 or something like that, or return null. Let me see, what's the return value of this? Oh, this is a return JSON value. That's interesting. Okay, I'm going to figure out what I should do, but here I would just say I'll just make a simple exit -1. Okay, this makes sure that you basically say, hey, this value, okay, I should do this. This is the best software engineering if I only say this. I would just say std cer ID field missing. At least provide some information. I know where I exit my program. Okay. All right. If this check is okay, then I'm actually going to do this part. Okay. I'm going to get this ID. I create a file name. And now I'm actually doing this, is that so now this is why I'm using the post map. The post map, I'm actually mapping the ID in the post map. Okay, so now I want to explain a little bit about post map. Okay, by the way, before I bring up my PowerPoint, any questions so far? Okay, give me a second. I'm going to use 14. Okay, so I'm going to talk about postmap. Okay, so essentially postmap has two columns. Okay, so the first column is the post ID. So it's not the post ID, it's just the ID field. So for example, and the second one is the pointer to the post object. So let me make it bigger. The ID, I want to make this ID a little bit longer. So the postmap looks like this. Okay, so for example, I will show you a post ID I have. Let me try to go this place. Okay, so do I have a post ID here? No, not this one. Json, do I have that? Okay, I have it here. So this one is a post ID with both the profile ID and the post ID. This is ID field, okay? So the first one is actually going to be, looks like this, but I'm going to make it a lot smaller. Okay. Okay, this is not long enough. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so the first field is just a post ID looks like this as a string. And the second one, let me just copy it, is a pointer. So the pointer, I would just use the arrow, okay? It's a pointer. Okay, so essentially a post map is an array of a bunch of things looks like this. Well, obviously with a different pointer and different post ID. So you can think about this is a post map looks like. It's an array, but with an extra column which represent the ID. Okay, so that's what post map is doing. And so we look at the what is a post map right now about the code. Where am I? What? Oh, here. Using here. Okay, now let's look at here. So this is the line of code I would like to go over with you. Okay. So I'm going to put it into my code here. Yeah, I'm just get rid of this a little bit. see this? Okay, now I finally can fit into one line. Okay, so let's try to understand what this is. Okay, so in this example, I have how many entry in my post map? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8. So the index, I'm going to write down the index is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And make it a little bit bigger so I can fit. Okay. So this is their index that associate with each of the element in the post map, in this post map array. And so what is post map end? Post map begin is going to be 0. Post map end is going to be 8. Okay, it's going to be 8. So this is basically, I would say, post map 8. Post map end. In this, sorry, I shouldn't do that. I would just do this. So I would say post map dot end is equal to 8. Okay, the value of this is equal to 8 because at this moment I have only 8 entry and it's indexed with a 0 to 7. So I'm going to change this to mellow. Mellow. Okay, so now you know the value is over here. Okay, so now this is this part. I will mark it as a red. So now let's look at the first part. The first part, I have this string. This string is not surprise to you. It's just getting the ID string from the input JSON. So I'm going to use the green color to represent that. Okay, that's the green. And so which means that we're trying to match with one of the string over here, which is also green. I'm going to do the coloring here. Okay, so this string is actually doing this. So now what is the post map find is trying to do? So now the last one is the find. What is the find is trying to do? I'm going to use a different color. Let me use purple. And this one as well. So post map find for this string on this is the interface with post map. It's actually find the return is going to be 2. So basically, post map find is trying to find the index value in this post map, in this array for the key that you actually provide. So that's what postmap.find is trying to do for you. Okay, so this is going to give you the number 2, and which is not equal to postmap end, which is 8. So that's try to check the condition whether they're equal or not equal. So in other words, that if this particular ID that you just provide doesn't appear in the post map I already have, means that this is a completely new post, then this 2 is going to be the same, right? Because if you couldn't find anything, then basically I would put an 8 here. Then this 8 could possibly be the index if you couldn't find it. Okay, so there are 2 possibilities of the post map find is going to return. It's either going to return one of the index for the entry I already have, or it's going to provide you number 8, which is the same as post map end. So this line of code here is just basically saying that whether this ID string is in my post map or not. If it's not equal, means that it is in the map. That's why now I come back to here. You can see that if the first part is right, that means that this particular post is already in there. So which means that we need to update that. But if it's not true, which you don't have it, then I will still check whether there is a file in the post, because it could be I already have a post that's actually with that name is there. I haven't done that, so I have to do that. Okay. So this is the variety of check. I try to find out where do I know whether this is a post that's actually already in the memory, or this is a post I had it before, but it was on the file system. Remember, I said post whatever, because it could be this way. Because the file name could be, let me just write it down, that the convention that I use is that you could have this file called, let me use here. You could have a file called post underscore .json. You can have a file looks like this. Let me actually try to make it bigger. Let me make this smaller. I don't really need this. So this could be the file. The file name looks like this. Post underscore the ID and then .json. If you can search that, that's actually, you need to reload it in as well. Okay. So that's the second part that you should be doing. Okay. So if nothing of this works, then you're going to return the RC is smaller than 0. If there's anything wrong with this return code, you basically just say status fail, that we cannot do anything. Okay. All right. So now we know that if this is the way it's processed, and then we're going to get ready to write it back. Let me actually see, where do I call that function? Yeah, sorry. Inside here, I kind of redacted a little bit, but inside here, we need to do either equivalent of HW produce, which is JSON to post, or JSON post merging. Okay, we have to do either one of those, and also similar here, we might have to do that as well. Either one of those two in this function. So that basically tell you what is the server side. But the rest of the code, I do want to say, if there is any error, if the RC code is smaller than 0 through this process, I'm going to return status failed. And also, if it's not failed, I'm actually write it back to the, you can see here, I'm actually open this post pointer, but with the right permission. So I can actually write it back. So how do I write it back? I would just take that post pointer. Where did I do that? This part. You see that? I actually take that post pointer. I do a dump J, and then do a to style string and put it into C string, this line. And this line basically gave me that nice format of that file, and I'm actually going to write it back to that file. I just opened it. So I store the post information as a JSON string. So even the server crash, my post is still there available. So this part is really try to provide the persistent object. Okay. Any question up to this point? So while you're thinking about the question, I'm actually going to, I want to save this. I want to send this also to the class server. Okay. because I made some changes. And I will update the slide as well. Okay, I already upload there. Let me update also my, let me also update my slide. So you can see this pieces here to talk about the post map. Let me just move this a little bit here. Okay. Okay, so I think I have upload everything. All right, so now the remaining piece I like to talk about is maybe I should go over a little bit about the search as well. So that was update. So now I want to talk about the search. Okay, for the search is, I mean, we're processing this called search clause. The search clause is basically a keyword and then a key phrase we would like to match. Okay, so again, I'm still parsing it so I can get the keyword, but this time I'm not expecting an ID. I'm just expecting the keyword. Okay, I'm getting the keyword. Again, the keyword better be there. If the keyword is not there, I'm going to exit. I'm going to return RC is equal to 1. So over here is really the place I'm actually going to search the keyword because I found the keyword. And then, I mean, let's skip this part. This part is really try to provide the keyword part. Try the real action is here. But then, if it's anything wrong, again, the state of the code is returning fail and then just return. So the real code I actually get rid of is here is that how do you get all the posts that has the key that's actually matching the key you just specified. Okay, so I didn't give you a lot of guideline about how you can implement that. It's completely up to you. But let me give you some general idea about potentially what you can do. So one of the idea what you can do is that you can actually go through the post map. So you can go over the post map just like you go over like an array. So you search through every single post in the post map because post map will give you object pointer. And each of the object pointer is going to give you some kind of key that you have. And then you can just using the key to basically match with the keyword to see if the keyword belongs to the key that this post has. So you basically go through every single post and do that, and then you return, you gather all the posts, in the JSON. Basically, you will call dumpj on everything and then just reconstruct that JSON and put it in. And then you return the whole thing. And that's one way you can see that the result JSON eventually is something I'm going to return. And then this is something I'm going to construct, okay? So essentially what you're doing is, let me actually write down what I just said. You search the post map, every post, you check, I would say check every post in post map and match with the desired key phrase, okay? And if match, I would say push that, should that be push? Yeah, I would say push. Yeah, push that post into an array, into a vector. You can do either push post or push the JSON post. Either way, it's okay. I mean, the difference between post and JSON post, I would just say C++ post or JSON post. It's your choice. And then you basically try to have a vector. Then basically you try to, the final step is construct a large JSON that including all the post JSON, post JSON from the vector. Okay, so this is the fourth step you're going to do. Okay, over here, just go over the post map and match. If a match, you push that into a vector and then you construct a large JSON. And somewhere either in the step 2 or step 3, you call dumpj to actually convert the JSON post, C++ post to the JSON post. So you can see that. So the client, when they receive it, client is receiving an array of JSON. That's actually each of the element represent one large JSON. Okay, so that's what the search. The search, it should be just the tricky part is how do you handle the matching keyword part. Just write a code to do the matching. I mean, I was using another way to do it. I didn't actually search for the post map. What I did is that for every single keyword, when I update the JSON, I already insert the pointer into a keyword. That's why in my, just show you, in my OKey, you don't have to do this, by the way, it's just convenient for me, is that for every keyword I have, you see that I already have not just the string, the keyword phrase, but I also have a post star vector. I already actually put every post I know belong to this keyword, already put it in my vector. So whenever people call me to say, I want this key, I don't need to search the post map. I just basically bring out the OKey and provide the list of posts and then send it back. Okay, that's just two different ways to do this. I either pay the price when I do the update, or I pay the price when I do the search. Okay. Okay, any question? Let me check the chat. Where's the chat? Okay. Is JSON post a new CPV file? You modify the post class. Okay. Although I made a different file. I made a different file. Let me see what I have here. Yeah, I do have this JSON post redacted. It's a separate file. Yeah, but remember, I actually changed that. I made the original reference interpretation. doesn't have the JSON post underscore comment, but now I have that. So you can decide which one you want to follow, okay? Okay, she asked, I'm going to do a demo really quickly, okay, for you to see that. How many point is the search worth? I forgot what I said in the, okay, I forgot what I said in the assignment. I need to check on that, okay? But I would say search will be equivalent. If I didn't say anything, my thinking is that search and update, they should be about the same number of credits, okay? Okay, let me try to run this program very quickly before I finish this update, whatever, okay. Let me, let me check on that. Which one is this one? Okay, this is 8. Can I do this here? Okay, I will try to do this. I never, by the way, this is homework 8. I'm keep doing. You don't worry about homework 8. Homework 8 is just improved version of homework 6. Okay, so I'm building things a little bit differently here. But I for this directory, I don't think I even tested even once. But let me try it if I am allowed to do this. Oh, I have a. What happened? Why I don't have this? I don't have that here. Oh, okay. No. I have to do this. Move JSON here. Okay. I move it to a different directory. That's why. Okay, so I have the program here, and I'm going to run the program. So I'm going to first go to the server directory. Okay, I'm going to remove this file. So I'm going to run //w6 server. Okay, I'm running the server program here. Okay, fine. Client. I thought I have a client directory. Oh yeah, I have a client directory here. Okay, so now I have the search clause, right? And then I have a server. By the way, the server has no object. It doesn't have this object here. Okay, it doesn't have the search whatever object. So I'm going to do, let me show you what my search clause is. So search clause is a keyword ECS 36B. So I'm searching for that particular clause. I'm putting in a search clause. And I actually write a program. I call it, let me show you, I call it HW7 search. This is similar to HW6 client. I just call it separately. And the HW7 basically is execution, and I have to provide the file name for the search clause. So I run search clause, and I get fail. Because why? Because I don't have any post, and doesn't have a post with the keyword ECF36B. Let me check if my server is still running. Yes, my server is still running. It got the search keyword ECF36B. Okay, so I don't have it. Let's update. Okay, let's update. So I'm going to update, and I'm using. I have one. I actually separate them. Instead of a client, I have another function called update. So wait a minute. Update didn't give me anything. Okay, that's not good. Okay, it doesn't give me an error message. So I'm going to update. I'm going to put in the update message. So I'm going to put base JSON. Okay, so HW7 update for that base JSON. So when I update the JSON, it's actually return me this particular object I just. So let's look at the server side. The server side actually got one JSON. So now the server side is saying that originally I have a 0 post. Now I have a 1 post. And then I actually have this file names here. Okay, this is the file name. So, okay, now I have a 1JSON over there. This is 0. So now I'm going to do search again. I'm going to do search again because now do the search. Now the search, it give me something because when I search that, it actually give me this one. So let me actually make a change. Search class. So let me actually change. I'm missing a B. Okay, something like this. If I do this, now it's fail because I'm not searching for that. Okay. So I think Shreyas, you asked me what do you expect. So when I return is an array of the object. So let me actually do one more thing. Let me change this back to B. And then I do search client again. But I want to keep it to return .json. Okay. So now let's look at what do I got. Return JSON. You see return JSON. Oh, it actually print out this. This one doesn't have to be printed out, by the way. This one was printed out locally, not remotely. Okay, but I want to tell you that this is the part that's actually returned. You see, return, it returned back an array. It says count is equal to 1 in the data. And data is because it's a one object, so that's why it's 1, because I only have one post on the other side. But the data is basically this part is one post JSON. So essentially, let me actually use my PowerPoint again. Where's my PowerPoint? Sorry. Here. So the format that we really want to have, the conceptual, the return is just return an array of JSON post. But I'm going to write it in JSON syntax to tell you what it is. So here is a post JSON. Post JSON looks like this. You have this bracket inside here. You have, say, action and whatever action is, and then you have other value, right? Have all the field that you are familiar with in Homework 5. Okay, so the result from search is a little bit different. The result from the search is actually going to have like the first one is going to be count. How many elements? Assuming you have 5, okay? And then you have data. And then the data is going to be like this. And then you're going to have, okay, of course, I should have this one here, and then I have this one that's actually finished the whole. But in the middle, you're actually going to have 5 of those. One, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the last one. So I'm going to make it smaller so you guys can see the whole thing. Let me change this back a little bit. So this part I'm going to use make it smaller. For in this part. Or mellow. Yeah, okay, looks like this. So I'm going to just color code it. This one is 1JSON. I'm going to use green. And inside here, I have a 1JSON green. The second JSON is going to be maybe a different color. Another JSON, just make it looks a little bit colorful. Okay. But my illustration is just telling you that what you're expecting to get, a big JSON from the search, is basically a few things. You can think about this is that when you do a Google search, right, you enter a keyword, it bring you back lots of entry. And each of that is an entry. It's just give you, instead of the URL to the resources, it's give you a post JSON. So now you can actually do further processing of each of this JSON to see what kind of things you would like to see. So eventually, so what we are really doing here is a back end of the social media. Is the front end is going to just display this 5 JSON using the nice GUI interface to show you, oh, here's a post, new post come in, somebody make a new comment. So that's what we're working on here for the search part. Does that answer your question, Shreya? Okay. So I will say that yes, something like that. Something like what you said is HW6 server and HW6 client. But the program will be, like I said, will be a sequence of program. So a sequence program, which means that for the HW6 server, you don't need to do anything. It's just no parameter, it will continue to run. But for the client, it's really try to integrate the scenario, right? Because you might have multiple JSON that you need to input. You might have a new update, you might have something else. So the HW6 client is going to be some testing scenario, which we will provide you the testing scenario hopefully today, so you can follow how to modify your client program to actually process all the JSON. Okay. All right. Any question before I turn it off? I do want to just upload all the resources to the Zoom video because I think I cover a lot of stuff for homework 6. Is there any question before I?
Professor, I have a question
Sure.
regarding the regrade policy. For homework 3,
Just give me 1 second. Let me turn off the recording, then I do the